Garth Crooks made history in March 1976 when he became the first black player for Stoke City since the 1940s. He was just 18 years old, born in Bucknall, Stoke-on-Trent to Jamaican parents. His debut against Coventry City that April marked the beginning of a 14-year playing career that would span from 1976 to 1990. Despite his undeniable talent, he was Stoke's top scorer in his first full season, 1976-77, and again in 1977-78 with 19 goals. Crooks played in an environment defined by relentless hostility. His professional success occurred against a backdrop of racial hatred that no player should have endured. The late 1970s represented a zenith of blatant, uninhibited racial aggression from football crowds. Crooks and his black contemporaries faced racist chants, derogatory banners, and objects thrown at them, most notably bananas, a deliberate racist symbol. What made this situation particularly insidious was the institutional response, or rather, the lack of one. Black players were expected to silently endure the abuse. Crooks revealed that there was an unspoken but clear institutional mandate. It was made clear to us that we had to cope with it. It was seen as a test of character. This framing shifted responsibility entirely onto the victims. Instead of football authorities addressing the systemic problem, they transformed racial abuse into an individual test that black players had to pass to prove their worth. Crooks developed what he called cocky arrogance as a survival mechanism, not a personality trait, but a psychological shield necessary just to function professionally. Every match day represented not just athletic competition, but psychological warfare, where success on the pitch had to be achieved while simultaneously deflecting dehumanizing hatred from thousands of spectators. Perhaps nothing illustrates the normalized racism of the era more starkly than the Len Cantello testimonial match on May 15, 1979, at the Hawthorns. This officially sanctioned event featured a West Bromwich Albion remind of white British and Irish players against a team of entirely black British players led by Cyril Regis and Laurie Cunningham. Crooks played as centre-forward for the black team. The match drew 7,023 spectators. While some participants like Cantello later recalled, "We didn't think it was controversial at the time," the event reveals profound institutional blindness. A major professional club explicitly used skin colour as the sole criterion for team selection in a public celebration. This wasn't challenged or questioned. It was simply accepted as entertainment. Beyond external racism, Crooks faced significant internal professional friction. Manager Alan Durbin repeatedly played him out of position as a winger rather than his natural forward role during the 1978-79 season. Crooks openly criticised this decision, a bold move for a young player in that era. While he was eventually restored to striker and helped Stoke achieve promotion, the tensions never fully resolved. During the 1979-80 season, despite scoring 14 goals and helping Stoke avoid relegation, the conflict with Durban resurfaced. The combination of external racial hostility and internal professional instability became intolerable. Crooks submitted a transfer request and was sold to Tottenham Hotspur for £650,000 in summer 1980. The significance here is layered trauma. For a black player already navigating intense racial abuse, the workplace itself offered no sanctuary, instead adding another source of stress and requiring yet another fight for basic professional respect. When a player is already expending enormous psychological energy defending against racist abuse, having to simultaneously battle for professional recognition within the club creates an unsustainable situation. The move to Tottenham represented not simply career advancement, but escape from accumulated pressures that threatened both his professional performance and personal well-being. In 1990, after retiring from football, Crooks experienced an incident that crystallised the pervasiveness of racial bias beyond football terraces. While stepping out to get snacks during a board meeting of the Institute for Sickle Cell Anemia Relief charitable work, a plainclothes police officer stopped him and falsely accused him of shoplifting. When Crooks asserted his innocence and mentioned knowing a high-ranking officer through his community work promoting supporting the Metropolitan Police's Youth Soccer League, the officer's response was dismissive mockery. Yes, and I'm a personal friend of the Queen. Only when a third officer arrived and recognised the former Tottenham and Manchester United player was he released. This incident profoundly shaped Crooks's understanding of systemic racism. He filed a formal complaint of incivility, not primarily for personal redress, but to validate the experiences of the broader black community. He wanted to challenge the view that criticism of police was exaggerated, just a knee-jerk reaction within our community. His reflection became a powerful statement on systemic vulnerability. Everyone I have told has had the same reaction. If I don't have a chance, what chance has anyone else? Professional success, public profile, and charitable involvement provided no shield against racial profiling. Crooks's post-playing career focused on diagnosing and challenging the structural failures within football governance, particularly through his work with the Professional Footballers Association. His central critique identified a critical point where anti-racism systems broke down. But when star players are accused, their clubs support them. He pointed to high-profile cases involving Luis Suarez, racial abuse of Patrice Evra, and John Terry, alleged racially aggravated harassment of Anton Ferdinand, as examples where clubs were wholly supportive of the accused players. Crooks argued that priorities were inverted. Clubs needed players on the field for commercial success and competitive necessity, which superseded ethical duties to investigate serious allegations. He specifically noted Chelsea's attempt to delay Terry's case because they were busy clearly showed their priorities. A core component of Crooks' critique targeted the PFA itself. The organisation's policy of not intervening in disputes between players created what Crooks identified as a systemic failure point. The whole system breaks down. This neutral stance effectively created an institutional loophole that shielded high-value aggressors and undermined victims. Crooks argued that Liverpool's conduct toward Evra, continuously questioning him even after a disciplinary panel ruled Suarez guilty, served to discourage other black players from coming forward. This institutional inertia was merely a modern manifestation of the 1970s pressure to cope with it silently. The structure remained one where victims were systematically disadvantaged. Crooks recognised that deep-seated institutional inertia required external pressure for meaningful change. He observed that significant political momentum only materialised after high-profile cases created what the government perceived as a national embarrassment ahead of the Olympics. The PFA must abandon neutrality in player-on-player racism disputes and proactively investigate and support victims. Clubs must adopt protocols mandating immediate, independent investigation into serious racism allegations, regardless of the accused player's commercial or athletic value. Crooks insisted, "We, all of you, must ensure they do and hold them to account for it. Governing bodies must face continuous, transparent public and media oversight to combat institutional inertia. The interconnection between sporting institutions and broader societal structures means that reform must be comprehensive, addressing both the specific culture of football and the wider systems of policing and public accountability." Despite his experiences, Crooks maintained a vision of sport's potential. He views prejudice as a destructive force. If racism and anti-Semitism penetrate sport, it will spread like cancer, and it will have exactly the same effect. It will destroy whatever it touches. His advocacy included collaboration with the PFA to implement policies where players commit to not tolerating bad behaviour. He vocally endorsed affirmative action principles like the Rooney Rule, stating, "All I am asking is that black coaches are given a fair crack of the whip, an opportunity." Crooks appeared on the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum's podcast, Voices on Anti-Semitism, underscoring his commitment to purging all forms of prejudice from sport. He advocates for FIFA's work, mandating anti-racism policies among affiliate members and ensuring violators are brought to book. His enduring belief centers on team sport's inherent potential to teach people how to cope with people, to understand people, to cope with their differences terraces. In this environment, individuals must put aside what you look like, what colour you are, how tall you are. You've got to make it work if you want to be successful. Garth Crooks' life represents a pattern of sustained systemic victimisation that spanned terraces, professional relationships, and state institutions. The analytical significance lies in understanding his advocacy as a direct consequence of accumulated experience. The mandated silence of the 1970s was broken by the police incident of 1990, which validated his political consciousness and fueled his structured critique of governance failures. His contribution extends beyond recounting personal injury to actively diagnosing and exposing structural loopholes. His realization that only fear of national embarrassment could motivate governing bodies forms the cornerstone of his demands for transparency and sustained accountability. Crooks evolved from victim to architect, not of the oppressive system, but of the framework for dismantling it. His legacy provides both a historical record of the costs borne by pioneering black footballers and a practical blueprint for institutional reform that remains relevant today.